I'm going to get right to the nuts and bolts. Moving to men's, what was the biggest adjustment?
I always joke about this. Is biggest adjustment was that now I don't have to knock on the door or flick the lights before I go into the locker room, as I did with the girls. Um, but all kidding aside, honestly, Wally, the biggest adjustment for me was sort of transitioning become from being a head coach for all those years. I mean, I've been a head coach for 30 years, and then being an assistant coach. That was an adjustment, certainly. But I think what everybody wants to hear is what's the big difference between coaching females and coaching males? Um, I coach them honestly. I coach them all the same. To be honest with you, I I really try and look at, I coach them one at a time. I look at each individual player, figure out what they need to be successful and to improve and, have a valuable experience here at McGill. That's basically what I looked at. And every player is different. Um, I really tried to ignore any kind of gender differences. I just looked at individual players' differences. I mean, I've heard all the stereotypes and I just chose to kind of ignore them and move forward, figure out what each player needs and try and provide those needs as best I could. And that's what I continue to do with the guys. I did that with the women's team and I continue to do that with the guys. Well, I've heard so much, and the 14 differences between coaching men and women, and there's a lot of gender stuff out there, and I just chose to try and create a culture that was, based on hard work and process and striving for success, and whether it was guys or girls, that's what I tried to do. Kind of bland, I guess, kind of beige, really. I think some people are looking for, you know, uh,
Well,
some big
Peter,
differences.
I'm
I
not
don't
looking
know.
for the textbook answer. I know Tim Bothwell, yourself. Tim's done formal things on those differences kind of thing. And uh, one of his lines was, guys have to win to have fun. Girls have to have fun before they can win. And I think there's I work in female hockey coaching, mentoring primarily U13 girls. And ever since I started coaching women, I found they want to know why and they ask questions. They're curious. You can't just push something on them like was done to us as male players. So going over to the female side, communication's the same, nothing's different. Uh, they're open to information. I think young people today on the boys' side are much more coachable than back in our day, uh, but it's a different mindset. So, does that
Yeah,
make any sense
I,
to you?
I just, yeah. I mean, again, Wally, I've heard that a lot that the girls want to know why and the guys want to know how. I've heard that. I mean, I'm a guy. I want to know why. I coach a lot of guys who want to know why. Coach a lot of girls who didn't really care about the why, just wanted to know how. So I just find that it's really like I'm not blind to the fact that there are probably gender differences, but I'm blind to the fact that my approach was always to was when I looked at the team, I didn't look at it as a group of women. I looked at it as a group of individuals who each one needed things that were different. Again, as I said before, I just tried to coach them one at a time, and that's the way I looked at it. Another one is that the girls can be more emotional. Geez, I coach some real emotional guys, to be honest with you. And it just, again, I think that if we bring stereotypes into it, it can be really limiting. So I just tried to really avoid those stereotypes. And again, as I said before, I just tried to create a culture that was based on hard work and process, as I said. And it wasn't, it wasn't a women's culture or a men's culture or a French culture or an English culture. It was just a culture that was based on, it was a values-based culture that I really tried to implement. And it took a while with the women's team. When I inherited that team, it had been a club level sport at McGill for years and years with volunteer coaches and McGill, the athletics department did a review of all their varsity sports and decided that women's hockey was an up and comer, and some of that was based on the Olympics and from '98, and um, so they decided to put eggs in the basket of women's hockey. And our athletic director knew that I was coaching. I had been coaching out in the community, and he asked me if I would take over the women's program. And he probably thought that I was going to do it for a year or two. I probably thought that I was going to do it for a year or two, and I ended up doing it for 20 years. But the team that I inherited was a club level team with club level sports and a club level mentality. And I had to go out and recruit the kind of players who I felt would fit into the culture that I was trying to establish at McGill. And that's basically what happened. I remember after the first year, went out, recruited 11 new players. But not all of those players made it to their full 4 or 5 year career. They all graduated from McGill, but not all of them made it because I kept on trying to, find players who would fit in. And some of them did, and some of them didn't. And we moved on in some cases. So, but one thing I will say, Wally, I will say that, it's probably, you're right in that, certainly there are changes now from the old days when we coached, 30, 40 years ago when we were coaching. I think there's a difference across the board, both for the guys and for the girls, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's fantastic now that the evolution of women's sport and the respect that women's sport gets now seems to me, I don't know how you guys feel, but seems to me that it's really elevated. I'll use the example. We went up the guys team. We went up, played TMU, former Ryerson in Toronto. It was 2 years ago. We went, and Guy Boucher was one of their coaches who was running the power play. He's a McGill grad. I know him, so I asked if we could go and watch the Leafs practice. Went and watched the Leaf practice, and Guy spoke to the team after. It was great. But Haley Wickenheiser was also on the ice. She was skill coach with the Leafs, as you all know. And so I asked Haley, would you come up and speak with the guys? And what I was so impressed with is the guys, like Haley was super. I mean, gave a real nice talk and answered questions. And the guys were just so attentive to what she had to say. And so many of the guys afterwards said to me, how great it was. And I think, that's just sort of indicative of how much respect a female coach is getting in the guys' game, for example. And I think that that's something that's really changed, which I think is fantastic over a number of years. And also, with the PWHL coming along, college players have something to aspire to, a sustainable, good hockey league that they aspire to after their college career. I think, all of that, I think it's really fantastic. Not sure how I got on that tangent, but I did.
It's a good tangent, Peter. Really